You know, when we think about the great American music cities, our minds usually jump to places like Nashville or maybe New York. But sometimes the most influential places are the ones hiding in plain sight. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of those secret histories, and it's all about the city of Chicago.
So let me just start with a question for you. What in the world could possibly connect Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, the country rock superstars, the Eagles, and the legendary Bob Dylan? I mean, on the surface, it seems totally random, right?
Well, the answer is Chicago. Believe it or not, every single one of them was deeply shaped by this incredibly vibrant, gritty, and now kind of forgotten folk music scene that just exploded in the city's North Side clubs. This wasn't just a place to hear music, it was a launchpad for some of the most important artists of the 20th century. To give you a real taste of what this world was like, just picture this. It's late one night at a club called Le Montmartre. The main acts are done. The door swings open, and in stumbles with somebody there called a towering, wasted drunk. He just grabs a harmonica and starts playing. And that guy? That was Johnny Cash. He wasn't on tour, there were no tickets, he was just there. Another musician in a Chicago club, swapping songs with the locals until the sun came up. That's the kind of magic we're talking about.
But here's the thing. A scene like this doesn't just happen on its own. It doesn't just appear out of thin air. It gets built. And in Chicago, it was really built by two very different, very powerful guys who became the godfathers of the whole thing.
So on one side, you had Richard Harding, who ran the Quiet Night. He was the ambitious talent scout, the guy with the big national vision. He's the one who brought in these future legends. We're talking Bob Marley, the Eagles, Bruce Springsteen, for their very first Chicago shows. Then on the other side, you had Earl Ponk at the Earl of Old Town. And Ponk, he was this gruff, super protective father figure. He wasn't trying to book the next big star. He was all about creating a local family and really nurturing Chicago's own songwriters. You could say Harding was building a stage, but Ponk, he was building a home. And man, this quote just perfectly sums up Pianki's whole style. A young songwriter, a guy named Steve Goodman, writes a brand new song in the dressing room at the Earl. And Pianki doesn't just go, "Hey, nice song." Nope. He growls at him, "If you don't get that copyrighted tomorrow, I'm going to kick your ass." It was pure tough love, you know? But it was exactly that push that turned his kids from talented amateurs into actual professionals. So who were these kids? Well, these clubs created an entire generation of incredible songwriters. But right at the very heart of it all was a trio that people started calling the Holy Trinity of Chicago folk: Steve Goodman, John Prine, and Bonnie Kolock. And the story of how they got discovered is just legendary. It perfectly shows you what this scene was all about. It all went down in one absolutely wild 48-hour period back in '71. The superstar Chris Christopherson sees Steve Goodman play and is just totally blown away. But Goodman, instead of soaking up all the attention, tells him, "You have to see my friend John Prine." So a couple nights later at 3 in the morning in a locked bar, Prine plays for Christopherson and, get this, the pop idol Paul Anka. What happens next? Both Goodman and Prine walk out of there with record deals. It just wasn't about competition, it was about friends pulling each other up.
Now, with Steve Goodman, there's a really crucial detail, and it all comes down to a single number: 20. Why is that number so important? Well, that's how old he was when he was diagnosed with leukemia and was told he didn't have very long to live. He literally called his life a time bomb. And that diagnosis, it just fueled this incredible, relentless drive. He knew he couldn't waste a single second, so he poured absolutely everything he had into his music.
And then there was Bonnie Kolock. Oh man, she was the queen of the scene. Her voice was so unbelievably captivating that she could get people to line up for 4 blocks in the middle of a Chicago blizzard just to hear her. Get this, one night her voice was so pure, so powerful, that the entire smoky bar just stopped. They put out their cigarettes so they could hear her better. And the craziest part, even with all that power, she had such bad stage fright that she'd secretly write help on reporters' notepads right before a show. Just an incredible mix of absolute power and raw vulnerability.
Now, of course, the folk boom of the '70s, like all great eras, it eventually faded away. But that unique Chicago spirit, that sense of community and realness, it didn't die. No way. It just went underground for a bit, and then it came roaring back in the 1990s with a totally new rebellious sound that, once again, put Chicago right at the heart of a musical movement.
They called it insurgent country. And what is that exactly?
Well, imagine taking the raw, honest storytelling of classic country music, that 3 chords and the truth, and then smashing it together with the loud, fast, do-it-yourself energy of punk rock. It was unfiltered music about working-class life, and it was born right there in the dive bars of Chicago.
And the engine for this whole new scene was a little label called Bloodshot Records. And its origin story, as you can see, is pure Chicago DIY spirit. It started with 3 music fans who were just bored with everything on the radio. So they decide, hey, let's just make one CD to document our little local scene. But when they put it out, they suddenly got flooded with letters from all over the country, from people saying, hey, we have that here too. They thought they were just making a mixtape for their neighborhood. They accidentally uncovered a national movement.
So when you boil it all down, what is the secret Chicago recipe? Well, here are the key ingredients. You need a bunch of supportive clubs, all packed close together. You need mentors. You need the talent scouts and the father figures. You absolutely have to have that collaborative, we're all in this together kind of vibe. And finally, you need that working class spirit that cares way more about being real than being perfect. That right there, that's the magic formula.
Which brings us to a final thought. In our world today, with streaming algorithms and viral TikTok songs, could a scene like this one, a scene built on handshakes, on late nights and smoky bars, on a fierce sense of local community, could it ever happen again? It's something to think about the next time you discover a new favorite artist. Where did they really come from, and who helped them along the way?